February 1998, Cloverdale, California. A teenager sits alone in his bedroom. The glow of a monitor lights his face. Outside, it's quiet. Inside, the screen is alive with data streaming in from places he has no business being. He is 16 years old. His name is Jonathan James, and tonight, he is inside the United States Department of Defense. Not standing outside it, not looking at it from a distance. Inside it. Moving through its systems the way you move through rooms in your own house. By the time anyone notices, he will have forced the United States military to shut down its own computers. Not because of a bomb, not because of a war, because of a teenager in California who wanted to see if he could. July 1982, Miami, Florida. Jonathan James is born into a world just beginning to understand what computers will become. His father works in technology. Computers are not exotic objects in the James household. They are tools, familiar ones. Jonathan grows up absorbing their logic, learning their language early. He is, by most accounts, exceptionally bright. The kind of child who doesn't just want to use a thing, but needs to understand what happens when you push it past its stated limits. School does not hold him. He is bored in ways that gifted, restless children often are. Not lazy, but chronically understimulated. While his peers are learning what computers are, Jonathan is already learning what they can do that their designers never intended. He teaches himself to program. He finds communities in the early corners of the internet, message boards, forums where people share techniques and exploits. The culture has a name. They call it hacking. But in these early years, it means something closer to exploration, finding the hidden doors in systems built without quite enough locks. Jonathan finds the doors. He is very good at finding the doors. June 1999. U.S. Defense Department Network. By 16, Jonathan has been quietly exploring government and military networks for months. Not frantically, not recklessly, deliberately. He operates under a pseudonym, Comrade. Partly a joke, partly a statement. His first major target is the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA, a branch of the Department of Defense whose job is to assess threats to America from chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons. One of the most sensitive agencies in the American government. Jonathan gets in. He doesn't force his way. He finds a username and password left exposed in unencrypted communications on the network, a gap that should not have existed. He walks through it. Once inside, he installs a backdoor, a hidden piece of code that lets him return whenever he wants, his own private entrance. Then he waits, and he watches. For months, he intercepts emails passing through the DTRA network. Over 3,000 messages, internal, sensitive, some containing passwords for other systems, other doors he didn't even need to pick. They were handed to him. He reads threat assessments, operational details, personnel information. Information that, in the hands of a foreign intelligence service, would have had serious national security consequences. Jonathan James is not a foreign intelligence service. He is a teenager in Florida. He is reading it anyway. August 1999. NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, Huntsville, Alabama. He moves further. The next target is NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, the facility responsible for the International Space Station. Jonathan finds a vulnerability, exploits it, and gets in. And then he does something that will define this case for years. He downloads the software that controls the physical environment of the International Space Station. Temperature, humidity, the life support systems for the astronauts aboard it. Source code valued by NASA at approximately $1.7 million. When NASA discovers the intrusion, their response is immediate. They shut down their computers, all of them, for 21 days. The systems are taken offline, swept, rebuilt. The shutdown costs $41,000. Not catastrophic by government standards, but the implication is stark. The computers at one of the world's most significant space facilities had to be switched off. Not because of state-sponsored espionage, because of a 16-year-old who had been left unsupervised in front of a screen. The FBI opens an investigation. January 2000, Miami, Florida. Federal agents arrive at the James family home early in the morning. They search the house, seize equipment, and make their intentions clear. This will not go away. Jonathan is arrested. Because he is a minor, his case moves through the juvenile justice system. He is charged with 2 counts of juvenile delinquency. He pleads guilty. The judge sentences him to 6 months of house arrest and probation until his 18th birthday. Letters of apology to NASA and the Department of Defense. A ban on recreational computer use. 6 months. For breaching some of the most sensitive systems in the American government. The light sentence reflects the reality of prosecuting a minor and a broader uncertainty. In 2000, the law around computer crime is still catching up with what computers can actually do and who can exploit them. Jonathan James becomes the first juvenile in the United States imprisoned for cybercrime. A marker. The moment the law acknowledges this new category of offense is real and committed by people not yet old enough to vote. 2000 to 2007, Miami, Florida. After his release, Jonathan attempts to build a life. It is not straightforward. The notoriety follows him. In interviews, he is thoughtful and candid. Not proud exactly, but honest. He was curious. He wanted to know what was possible. He found that the systems were more vulnerable than anyone wanted to admit. None of that, he says, required him to cause damage. He is consistent on one point. He never shared what he accessed, never sold it, never weaponized it. He was exploring, not attacking. May 2007, Miami, Florida. A new investigation pulls him back. A massive hacking operation has been uncovered, targeting retailers across America, TJX companies. Millions of customer credit card numbers stolen. One of the largest data breaches in American history at that point. Federal investigators pursuing the network find Jonathan's name in the picture. He denies involvement. He is not charged. But federal agents search his home. The pressure is sustained and immense. He tells people close to him that he believes the outcome has already been decided, that innocence will not be enough. May 18, 2008, Miami, Florida. Jonathan James is found dead at home. He is 24 years old. He leaves a note. In it, he writes that he has lost faith in the justice system, that he believes he will be prosecuted regardless of what the evidence shows, that he would rather choose his own ending than wait for an institution he no longer trusts to determine it for him. The note reads like the conclusion of a logical argument, not panic, not irrationality. A young man who looked at his situation and arrived at a decision he believed was the only one left. He is 24 years old. The lead figure in the TJX breach, Albert Gonzalez, is later convicted and sentenced to 20 years. Jonathan James is not named as a co-conspirator. Whether he was involved remains, officially, unresolved. The DTRA breach was made possible not by extraordinary hacking skill, but by ordinary negligence. Passwords left in plain text. Unencrypted communications. A government agency built to assess the world's most dangerous threats had left its own digital door wide open. NASA's 21-day shutdown illustrated something different. The life support software Jonathan downloaded was never altered, never transmitted, never placed at actual risk. But the fact that it could have been, the existence of that gap, was enough to force a reckoning that the government could not ignore. After Jonathan James, the conversation about cybersecurity changed. Slowly, imperfectly. The case became a reference point. The moment it became undeniable that the digital infrastructure of the most powerful government on Earth was vulnerable to someone not yet old enough to drive. There are two ways to read his life. In one, he is a cautionary tale. A brilliant mind turned toward places it had no right to go, paying a price that built for years until it became unbearable. In another, he is something more complicated. A young person who discovered that the most powerful institutions in the world had left gaps in their walls wide enough to walk through. Both are true. They don't cancel each other out. What remains is the image of a teenager, alone in a room in Florida, watching data stream in from the Department of Defense. Not for money, not out of malice, because the door was there, and he wanted to know what was on the other side. And because no one had thought to ask what would happen when someone like him came along.